They're constantly living outside of themselves. They're constantly comparing themselves to others. They're constantly living in this dream world of YouTube and Netflix and chill and all this other stuff, and it's not healthy. It's not healthy on a physical level. It's not healthy on a mental and emotional level, and it's not healthy on a relationship level.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. With all those key factors, especially for men, we need to become self-aware.
Sure.
More self-aware, more emotional intelligence
Certainly.
needs to be involved.
Certainly.
It needs to be integrated.
Certainly.
Even the dark side of things need to be integrated, but that takes practice. That takes a skill
Oh, yeah.
set. So
Oh, yeah.
when it comes to that, how is leveling up good for men?
Good question. How is leveling up good for men?
And I'm sorry to interrupt. And how is it good for men, and what does it consist of?
So we go back to the basics, right? If you can start with those three items,
Yes.
and notice I keep coming back to those three items, and there's a reason behind that. A lot of folks, when they're looking at things like worth, self-worth, the first thing that comes to mind is like money, right? And it's not about money. There are so many people out there that have money and resources, and they are some of the unhappiest, unfulfilled people in the world. If you take that out of the equation and you focus on those three aspects, how healthy are your relationships? How healthy are you emotionally? And how healthy are you spiritually and physically? Man, you will be rich. You will be rich. Money is a byproduct. It's a social construct. At the end of the day, seriously, if you turned off that TV, if you took more control and went out and say, you know what, I'm going to put my phone down. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to start with the gym today. I'm going to go out. I'm going to meet somebody. I'm going to show up for life.
Yes.
I'm going to show up for life. And if you just start with those three things, I would challenge anybody. If those three things are not in balance, if you were to work towards getting them in balance, you will move mountains.
What tools do you need to work towards that, though?
Certainly, everybody starts from a different perspective in life, right? Different people have different access to resources. Maybe you grew up in a healthier household than others. Maybe you grew up in a household that wasn't the most comforting, but frankly, you've got to do the work, right? And I know that's easier said than done, and there's a lot that has to go into it. I would recommend, for those that need it, seek therapy. There is no shame in reaching out for help.
Yes.
There is no shame in sitting across from a complete stranger, a doctor, and sharing your emotions and just being vulnerable. I would encourage anybody, learn to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Shout out to you. I will backtrack this a few months, and being able to sit with you over dinner, just me and you, and go over things, and go over
18
life.
months ago,
man.
Yeah. And Gary, I commend you. You were the only one that showed up. I put that out to 6 people. Gary, you were the only one that showed up, and here we are 18 months later, man.
Nah, man, you changed. You're one of the guys that sparked and lit a fire underneath me, man. And it helped out, and we were like, you know what? I'm going to push you to do it. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to push you to do it. I'm going to constantly be on you about it. And you've been going ever since.
For sure.
And now, here we are.
For sure. And that was a pivotal moment for me, and I imagine it was for you too, because I've been living here in the area for the better part of 6 years. And for me, it was all about, I'm living in a place where I don't have the kind of connections I had when I was back home.
Yes.
What am I doing to build that? I think anyone that knows me, especially here in and around the Fox Valley, will tell you I'm approachable. Like, I walk up to people all the time. I go out of my way to just be very personable, and that has led to so many doors being opened for me. And that was my thinking behind networking. Right?
Yes.
Here in the Valley, okay, what can I do from a standpoint of building a network? Right now, it might feel like it's just me, but there's so many resources out there, and it's just a matter of leaning into them. Again, going back to what I said about getting comfortable being uncomfortable. You got to show up. I put that out to 6 people. You were the only one that showed up.
Look at the time we're at, though, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Look what got cultivated from that.
Exactly. Because at first I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, I'm sitting in this nice restaurant, I'm dressed. I went out of my way just to put a simple invitation, no pressure. And I look up and I'm like, man, nobody's here. And then you walked in, and I was happy. I was ecstatic. But at the same time, like, man, what is he gonna think when it's just me and him? When I invited others, when we're sitting at a table that's set up for 6 others,
Yeah.
when our waiter's coming, like, where's the rest of the group? But you showed up, you sat down, and we just clicked. We just clicked, man. I mean, from the first time I met him, just walking up to you and introducing myself, I mean, we just clicked, and it was solidified at that table. I said, "This is the kind of individual I want to be connected to. This is the kind of individual that needs to be connected to me." It just clicked, and you got to show up. You got to do the work. You got to get comfortable being uncomfortable, and you got to get out of your zone. So many men, a single man, a man on his own, left to his own devices, is one of the most dangerous human beings in society. Period. Because you're locked inside your mind, you're not going out, you're not expanding your horizons, and you just get all these thoughts, and then it's just bombarded by social media. It is not a good place, right? And I saw myself going down that pathway too. And although I felt like I have these great relationships, I have these close connections. I'm spiritual. I'm physically fit. I'm active. Different things. I still go home at night, and it's still just me.
Yeah.
Right. And then you're left there with okay, now what? What am I doing? What am I doing to level up? What am I doing to what am I doing to stay safe? Right? Because depression is real, and it's not something. It is not something to be ashamed of. Going back to what I said about being vulnerable, if more of us just spoke up, it would be such a better society.
Absolutely.
And if more of us just put down our phones, if more of us just talk to one another, and I don't mean that text crap either. If more of us just picked up the phone, we're purposeful with our intentions, we're purposeful with our communication, with our relationships, man, can you imagine the kind of society we would live in? We're even now as we go into November here, you're already seeing it. And for me, when people reach out to me, what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on that? I'm like, right now I'm focused on the things that I can control.
Absolutely.
What are the things that are within my control right now that I can focus on, right? And not give into the noise. And I get upset, when people come to me and they're like, "Man, aren't you pissed off about this?" I'm like, why are you letting that eat up your happiness? There is so much joy that's out there to be had. And if you get fixated on things that you can't control, it just it erodes at you on a human level. It erodes at you. And I think men become more personal about it. Men become to an extent more visceral.
Yes.
I don't want to. The first word that came to my mind was dangerous.
Yes.
But I would say more visceral.
Yes.
From the standpoint of men kind of seethe on it, because for us it comes down to pride. Pride is still a big thing in this day and age. And don't get me wrong, you should have a level of pride. But at the end of the day, what is it doing to you? Right? On those different levels that I talked about. What is it doing to your relationships? What is it doing to you, on an emotional level? What is it doing to you when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to how you're treating yourself? What is it doing to you when you look at those 3 factors? And I'll tell you, Gary, it's doing a lot of damage to a lot of people, men in particular.
Thank you for that. I'm going to touch base on something that you said, and this is my opinion. You don't have to agree. Depression is very, very real. Mm-hmm. And depression is also, in my opinion, a signal that your mind, your body, and your spirit is trying to tell you something. It's alerting the being of who you are that something is very off, and we need to get to it. We need to figure this out. Mm-hmm. There's something that we need to do. We need to go to therapy. We need to vent. We need to be vulnerable. We need to go after our fears. Yep. Go after your fears. You're afraid of something, go after your fears.
Yep.
You need to conquer something. You need to get in control of who you truly are. Every piece of you need to be in control of. Mm-hmm. And that takes true vulnerability and accepting your fears.
It does.
And you already answered the question I have for you about self-worth. How do you start that self-worth when, as a man, and you're feeling You're feeling down, or you're feeling like you can't be vulnerable.
Certainly.
Reaching out. Look within.
Yep.
Look within. Get
And-
over your, just say, sorry to interrupt.
No.
Yeah, get over your pride, get over your ego, because a lot of times our ego and our pride, even in a state of vulnerability,
Yep.
stops us
Yep.
from reaching out to those that we love. And when we reach out, we feel so much better. We do. And as man, that pride stops us.
Yeah, indeed.
It does stop us.
Indeed.
That fear stops us, that pride and that ego. Get over yourself and reach out for help, man, and it's okay. And I can speak this from my own personal experience when I started to actually reach out. Much healthier. A lot of voices are not in my head anymore.
Sure.
I mean, I feel in control. I feel very self-aware. But we're going to lead into this next question because I know that you're very big on this. When it comes to the self-worth, leveling up, we need mentorship. We need coaching.
Sure.
What are your thoughts around mentorship and coaching?
Certainly. And before I lean into that question, let me also backtrack a little bit to share one thing, and that's as simple as this. For many people, you have a hard time opening up to your friends. You have a hard time opening up to your families because you're struggling again with that vulnerability wall. We live in a day and age, you've got things like EAPs. What's an EAP? That's Employee Assistance Program. You know, you've got these resources at your disposal. So I would encourage you, like we touched on with therapy, you know, seek that help, seek that counsel. And I've seen it myself firsthand. I work in human resources. I've seen it myself. People will open up to a complete stranger, but they will not turn around and share these same concerns, these same ideas and thoughts with the people closest to them. Don't be afraid to reach out, folks. If it can't be someone in your circle, by all means, look into those resources in your community. Look into those resources in your work, you name it. But you look into those resources. And to pivot to your question, mentorship and coaching, man, that's powerful stuff. It is. It's powerful stuff. Mentorship and coaching. And what I would tell anyone is lean into it. Find and identify those individuals who are in those roles, in those positions that you aspire to be in. And hopefully it's not somebody it should be someone, frankly, who you can have one-on-one, in-person conversations with more than anything. I know some people will do it online, and there is much to be gained from one-on-one.
There's a lot
to be gained from it because you're picking up on different cues, body language, you know, intonation that just doesn't come across when it's on a video or a live stream or Zoom call, you name it, different things like that. So for me, I always challenge people, you know, what are you doing to step out of your comfort zone? What are you doing to, again, level up? And once you've hit on those three boundaries, start looking in your circle for a resource. And when I say in your circle, I would encourage you first tap into your circle because 9 out of 10, there's probably somebody that knows somebody that will be an amazing coach or an amazing mentor to you. I don't recommend having someone who's like a first degree of contact for you, a friend, if you will, because again, there's so many barriers that go up. So you're better off working with someone who is, for all intents and purposes, a stranger. In my case, my mentor, my coach, is the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer of the organization that I work at. I sit down with him one-on-one once a week. When are you in the office, Dan? When can we connect? I have some questions. I love some feedback. When can we connect? And that has been so helpful for me because, he's interested in my growth. You want that in a coach. You want that in a mentor. You don't want just somebody who sees it as a transaction, right? And be prepared to pay for coaching in some instances. You know, especially for those of you who are out there and you're like, I want professional coaching. You might have to come out of pocket sometimes, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you're seeing the return on investment, right? If you're seeing that return on investment and you know deep down that this is working for me, keep going. All right? You got to have an abundance. You got to have an abundance mindset, folks. You got to have an abundance mentality. It can't be don't put